But about 10 years ago, like I remember I had 22-year-olds coming up to me at like the Abbey or something. You go like, your mom is Belinda Carlisle? Like, I love Circle in the Sand and Mad About You and all that. I'm like, how do you people even know what these songs are? Hey everybody, welcome to the Ask Duke Anything episode of my podcast, Duke's Download. I am very honored to have my boyfriend Army as my co-host, or the host, I guess, sort of guest host, because I'm the interviewee today. Last week, I solicited questions from all of you guys on Facebook, on X, on Instagram, asking about, basically any topic that's of interest to you. And remember, if you ever want to submit questions or comments or, whatever, feel free to reach out at questions@dukesdownload.com. But we're here at Army's apartment. We're on location. He's got a very eclectic art collection, as you can see, but a little change of pace. And I thought since he was the host today, that being in his space would be appropriate. So yeah, thank you for joining us, Army.
Thank you for having me.
If you want to begin, you may, since I know you have the questions printed out today.
Yeah, let's get started. So the first one is from Greg E. And it's what's the most useful thing we can do at this time in service for our country and fellow Americans?
As those of you who have watched the podcast know, obviously I spent a lot of time thinking about this and writing about this and talking about this. Part of why I started this podcast is because even on a very small level, I felt like it was important to have a platform where I could speak out and also have other voices, people who I felt had something valuable to say, people in entertainment, people in politics, people in sports, people just from across the board, because we are in a very challenging time, not just because of the president, but also just in general. I think in our culture, in media, and we're just living in a very polarized, everything's very black and white these days. And I think nuance is more important than ever, and having substantive conversations is more important than ever. So I think that's one way of doing that. I'm not saying that everybody needs to start their own podcast, but I think whether it's on social media, writing, also running for office, which I know, many of you may know, I ran for office twice in West Hollywood. I've served on nonprofit boards. I've been local government. I was appointed to a board in West Hollywood. I think there's a lot of ways to serve and to be involved. And it's not just politics. I mean, there's, like I said, nonprofits, doing charity work. Look, I'm not that big of a deal. I'm a pretty, in terms of my presence, I'm kind of a local person in LA, but I feel a sense of, like, I'm doing something bigger than myself. Even if it's just putting out an article or putting out a podcast video, I feel like even if it's just a couple people, maybe I'm helping to shape the narrative and shape the discussion and the public dialogue. And I think we all have that capacity. So I would just say writing, speaking, debating, marching, getting involved in local organizations that need volunteers, need support. I think there's a lot of different ways to be involved.
Yeah, it's a time that's very important for us to raise our voice. Elizabeth Bond asks, do you have any memories of your early years in California and your grandmother, Pamela? She was quite the lady.
Yeah, well, first of all, Elizabeth, she's been a big fan and supporter of our family. So, and doing a lot of amazing research about our family. So thank you for all your interest and support. Yeah, it's interesting. I've told you a lot about my family home in Beverly Hills, and there's this long. I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible, but there's a street in Beverly Hills called Pamela Drive, and the sign is actually still there. And the street was named after my grandmother, Pamela Mason, who's my dad's mother, who passed away about 30 years ago. But the house is still there. We don't own it anymore. But we owned it for 50 years, and it was an original house that was built by Buster Keaton, who was a very famous silent film actor. And the house was built in the 1920s, and my grandparents lived there from 1949 to 1999. And the crazy part is that even though I think we sold it when I was 7 or 8 years old, I remember it very, very well. And I've been back a couple times since we sold there. We walked
from West Hollywood.
Yeah, we walked all the way out there. We walked. We did. That was quite the day. I took an Uber back. He drove back. Oh no,
I walked back. I walked back. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's so crazy how even back then I had this sort of presence of mind and to take it all in. I remember the last time I walked through this house, and Pamela, even though I don't remember her specifically, it's weird. I don't remember her because she died when I was 4, but I remember her passing, and I remember being at the house. I guess we flew in from France where we were living at the time. And I remember being 4 years old and having either my aunt Portland or someone in the house saying to me that we were there because Pamela had passed away. And but it's it's weird how people and things that that people that maybe passed away when you were young or whatever, for some reason their presence still and their impact on you is still so strong. And
Yeah.
I think it's probably because of all the stories my parents have told. And but also, like, I remember vividly whenever we come into town from France or from England where we lived for most of my childhood, I remember coming into town. I remember going down the long driveway, and I remember everything about the house. I remember waking up. I would wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, jet lag, and I remember and everyone else would be asleep. And I you're gonna laugh when you've heard part of this, but I remember coming downstairs, coming down a long stair. You guys should look up the house. It was pretty amazing. But I remember coming down the long stairway, and the light would be on in the kitchen, and there'd be a ceiling fan, and my aunt Portland would be in the kitchen making the dog and cat food.
Yeah.
My grandmother had, like, I don't think I know the exact number, but I think she literally had like 9 cats and like 5 dogs and other pets too.
Yeah.
But I remember even after she died, my aunt Portland would open up the doors to like the patio and put these huge like vats of food out on the patio. I remember I'm not joking, you would hear like a rumbling, you'd hear the floor shake.
Yeah.
And I swear around the corner, you'd see like a massive stampede, like in one long, like all together, like in like a weave thing, like pugs, cats, Jack Russells, French bulldogs, all like running out and they would all go out on the patio and just chow down. But yeah, I have really fond memories of that time. And, I still, like I said, I've gone back to the house. I'm hoping to take you there one day. We're friends. My parents and I are friends with the people who own the house now. But I have very fond memories of my early days in California.
Yeah.
And in fact, I won't respond to this yet because this is what I think one of the other questions about why I came back. But I've always felt like California was home for me.
Yeah. So we sadly couldn't walk inside the house when we went, but
I
it looked
tried.
cool.
My dad was like, "You should talk to the security guy and tell them that we know the owners and that we want to." But I was like, I thought about it. I'm like, I don't know if that would go down very well.
Yeah.
But I've been back, and the people that own it now we'll go one day.
Yeah.
It's a pretty epic. You should look it up.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
And she also asked, what was it that made you want to return to California rather
Mm.
than remaining in France and Europe?
It's weird. Again, it's weird how from a young age you just have sometimes you certain things stay with you, have an impact on you. Even though I lived most of my life in Europe from when I was 2 until I was 18, basically, we would come back here a lot. And it was just never even a question that I'd come back here. In fact, the day, I don't know why, it just was always like I felt at home here. And whenever I'd come back, whenever I left, I'd always be really sad. And, but, in hindsight, I really appreciate that I had the upbringing in Europe, and it gave me an international perspective that I now, especially these days, given how closed-minded and like nativist people are, I really think being raised with different cultures and different languages and different, it made me a lot more open-minded and I think evolved, I'd like to think anyway.
Yeah.
But I just always knew. I always knew that this was home, maybe because I had a sense of loss because of my grandmother and my grandfather and my aunt. I just knew that I felt like I was coming back in a way. This wasn't conscious necessarily, but it just was something like intuitive that the story wasn't finished and I was supposed to come back and sort of, honor my family, and continue the story, I guess. But the day I graduated high school in 2010, July 3rd, 2010, the next morning, I stayed up all night. I was 18, went out and partied for graduation night with my friends. The next morning at 5 a.m., came home, changed, zipped up my suitcase, and got on a plane and came to LA. And I arrived checked into my hotel. My parents got me a hotel room for 2 weeks for my graduation present. Changed to my Abercrombie and Fitch little twink outfit. Went straight to Mickey's and all the gay bars. I had a friend I'd met online who showed me around, and I like mapped it all out. I knew exactly what I was doing,
Yeah.
and you know, so I've been here almost 16 years. A little later, we'll talk about how we met, but we met almost around that same time.
Yeah.
So we've known each other 16 years too.
Long time.
Yeah.
Thomas McFly, he asked, I have the whole entire collection of everything your beautiful, stunning mom has ever released on CD, 12-inch vinyl, 7-inch vinyl, cassettes, laserdisc, and picture disc. I love her so very, very much. Your mom is the soundtrack to my life. Do you collect and play vinyl records yourself?
I don't, only because I mean I have vinyl records. I have a lot of my mom's vinyl records actually. And thank you, by the way. It's very sweet of you to say that about my mom. But I love music. I mean, I love vinyl records just on an aesthetic level. You know, I have a bunch of them. Unfortunately, I'm not technically skilled enough to. All I can manage is clicking a button these days or swiping left or right.
Do you have so many in that trunk? Aren't there
Yeah, there's
some
some, yeah.
and CDs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite activities that I haven't done in a while, but I used to love doing, not to play them, but just because they're cool and I'd love to, you know, go through them, is to go to this place, Amoeba Music
Oh,
in
yeah. They moved
Hollywood.
location.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
still around,
Yeah,
right?
they're still around.
But like I would love, like, of course, I love going and like seeing if my mom's music was in there, just because, you know, having that original vinyl is like a time machine. You know, it feels like you're getting to like you're touching something from, you know, from the past. And I've always had a weird fascination with not only like history, but also the 80s. And like, so I think vinyl is super cool. And maybe one day, I have friends who, and in fact,
Your TV stand.
I do have a
I was
vinyl.
just thinking, like, isn't that a record?
I do have
player?
yeah, I do actually have the TVs on it, so I don't use it. But I have a really cool original brown wooden, like a, how would you
A
describe it?
record player, I think.
Yeah, it's like it's huge. So you
It
can
looks
put
like a TV stand, but it's a giant record player.
yeah, yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, I love vinyl. Unfortunately, I don't have the technical skill to use it, but it's pretty. They're pretty awesome.
One day.
One day, one skill at a time. Right now, I'm just working on you know, on the new iPhone operating system.
All right. McCullano Seeley.
Yeah, we were going over the questions, wondering how to pronounce your name. We were in Ireland, you know, I think it's a Gaelic or Irish name, so forgive me or forgive me.
Yeah,
You did good. You did good.
I'm trying. Have you ever been to Ireland? If
Mhm.
so, did you get to visit the Aran Islands?
I did not visit the islands, but I've been to Ireland a bunch of times, and it's a beautiful country. My mom actually toured there a lot back, still does, but I remember as a kid we would go, and we'd go to Dublin, and I remember, I forgot the name of the hotel, but there was a beautiful hotel there. I think we spent Christmas there once or twice, and it's a gorgeous country. And
Isn't that where your grandfather?
my mom's side of the family go way back, but they were from Ireland.
No,
Yeah,
but and on your dad's side, didn't your grandfather live there, or was it
maybe.
Sweden?
Oh, he lived in
Oh,
Switzerland.
Switzerland.
But yeah, Ireland's gorgeous, and and also I remember one summer, probably it's so crazy as you get older. You go, that was 24 years ago. We stayed at a house in the countryside, and I think forgot what part, but anyway, part of the Irish countryside for the summer, and it was so beautiful. And so it's a beautiful country.
It's on my list. I haven't been.
We'll go one day.
Yeah.
We were planning a Europe trip sometime soon, so hopefully we'll go.
Can't wait. Looper21 asks, your mom's band changed my life. What band has changed yours and why?
You know, I have such weird, eclectic taste in music. A lot of what I listen to these days is, and I talked about this in my David Archuleta podcast, is like house and EDM and I guess techno. That sounds so.
I know
so
who's changed your life.
yeah, well, yeah, John Summit, who I also talked about in my last podcast. I'm kind of obsessed with not just his music, but I love just his. If any of you go on his YouTube
His
channel,
vibe.
he has a great vibe, and he's into fitness and health, and he's always has a smile on his face. It's just upbeat and positive energy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I also like. I mean, so I love a lot. I listen to a lot of dance and house music. I love '80s music. Even like I'd say, of course, putting aside my mom and the Go Go's, my favorite band, I would have to say. I mean, I love the Beach Boys, but that's from like way back. But in terms of like the '80s music, I'd say is my favorite. And of the '80s music, other than my mom and the Go Go's, New Order is my favorite, and
Mm.
I think I played them to you.
Yeah.
Remember we saw them live.
Yeah. At that what was that rock concert called?
There's a festival the Go Go's played at called Cruel World,
Cruel World, yeah.
and they performed. I've seen them. I think I've seen them more than once. I think Erasure's great too. I just love like electronic music, and I love that. Like Blue Monday is one of the best songs ever, and it was one of the first songs that ever had like a drop. Like, and I just freaked out when we saw it live. And but yeah, I have pretty eclectic taste in music. New Order is one of those bands that there's like I have so many other songs, and there's like a song for every moment of my life that I can listen to, and it sort of resonates with me.
What was that other band you were talking about yesterday? The Tampoon?
That's a whole other story. We watched a movie last night called Dr. Alien. Speaking of the '80s, this is way off topic, but there's a '80s cult movie called Dr. Alien that I saw when I was 12. My mom actually had the DVD of
That's
it.
pretty good.
And I don't know where I thought to show it to Army, but it was on Amazon Prime, and I'm like, let's watch. And there was a band in it called in the movie called the Tampoons. That's way, way, way off topic, but yeah. Any of you haven't seen Doctor Alien,
Yeah,
it's gonna blow your mind.
it's fun. It's a wild ride.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Johnny Minogue says, "Are you going to P-Town this summer?"
It's funny. I've never been to P Town. Have you?
No.
You haven't been to Fire Island yet?
No.
Have you? I want to. Yeah, we should go one day. I have a lot of friends that have been and who go in fact, I have a few friends that go every summer, but I've never been.
Yeah.
I just finally did Fire Island for the first time a few years ago for one night. But my friends have a house in upstate New York, so I was there with them. And then I think it was in July or no, maybe yeah, July or August 2022. And they were like, have you been to Fire Island? I was like, no, I've never been.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we have to go.
I've
So
only heard stories, but I've never been.
yeah, we'll go one day. But yeah, P Town I've heard is great. Fire Island was definitely an experience. I mean, I need to get to the East Coast more often. I'm more of a West Coast gay. Like I've been to Palm Springs, obviously a bunch. I love it there. But I need to expand my horizons a bit.
I'm a Miami boy, so I'm the
Yeah.
opposite. I came from the East.
I love Miami.
Yeah.
Miami's great.
All right, Anthony0925 says, which one of your grandfather's screen roles is your favorite?
It's tough. I mean, he made over my grandfather, for those of you who don't know, was an actor named James Mason. He was a British actor back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. He acted for about 50 years, and he made over 150 films, some of which are kind of obscure, but he made a bunch of great movies. But of the great ones, A Star Is Born is pretty great.
It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've shown Army a few of them.
Lolita, Star Is
Lolita's
Born,
pretty great.
and the creepy one, the
Salem's Lot.
Salem's Lot was good.
Yeah. I'd say A Star Is Born because even though it's a sad movie, it's not exactly an uplifting story. You can't really beat him, and the combination of him and Judy Garland was pretty epic. And it's based in Hollywood. It's like a classic Hollywood golden era. It shows LA at that time, which is pretty cool. And I just think his performance was, he was nominated for an Oscar for that. And I think it's tough to beat that movie. But there's Lolita, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was pretty great.
Oh, I love that.
He played Captain Nemo.
The iguanas kill me.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Oh, you're right.
The
right.
squid
right.
is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's a good monster.
The center of the, what is it? The Journey to the Center of the Earth was great because they had these iguanas where they edited them as like giant monsters. It was.
They put it was cute. It was funny. And I mean, there's so many others. North by Northwest, which you haven't seen yet, right? That's one of the greatest movies ever made. But then the El Capitan, which is the Disney Theater in LA, did a screening of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and asked me to introduce it. And that was really, so, cool things come up where I get the opportunity to participate and honor his legacy, which is great. French Gay Riviera is the name of the account. Word is you used to live in the Côte d'Azur. That must sound so pretentious. It means the blue, like the blue coast in France, south of France.
Okay.
Hey, you speak Spanish. I don't. So you have a one up on me on that front.
I'd love to chat with you as a Canadian living here about your experiences.
Oh, so this is a Canadian who lives in France, I
Hmm.
guess. Yeah, like I said, I love living in France in hindsight. I mean, at the time, I think when you're a kid, you always want what you don't have, and even to some extent as an adult. But, at the time, I felt kind of isolated because I was a kid, only child, living in the middle of the countryside with my mom and dad. It was beautiful. I mean, beyond beautiful, but we lived in like the mountains about half an hour from
It
Cannes.
sounds so cool.
It was beautiful. It was amazing. I mean, as an adult, I would love it. I mean, getting to eat, good food and I mean, the wine, the food, I mean, there's so many, the culture, I mean, there's so much to do, so many amazing aspects to living in France.
Mm.
But as a kid, like all you want to do is like eat popcorn and go to the movies and, go to the mall. And that didn't really exist there. I remember we'd go to like, I'm focusing on the negative a lot. I don't mean to, but we go to like there's an American restaurant in Monaco called Stars and Bars, and we go and like one like twice a year. I'd have like a Pepsi and a burger, and that was like a big deal to me. But in hindsight, I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything more. I mean, it was a beautiful place, and the school I went to was great. I went to an international school, which helped me, I think, really broaden my perspective on life and on the world. And, my best friend still to this day from 30 years ago almost, or no, 27 years ago, is Italian. I had a bunch of friends from all over 33 different countries, I think we had in our school, different nationalities. So, and I've been back twice, I think, or three times since I left. It's been almost 16 years, which is insane. But we've talked about going one day. And a lot of my friends still live in Europe and London and France and from high school. So
I've only ever been to Paris, so it sounds exciting.
Paris is gorgeous.
Yeah.
But south of France is an amazing, amazing place. We are lucky to have had that experience for sure.
The Wong Man, he says, when you were a kid attending school in France, were there any online spaces or networks you went to, such were a part of, that got you connected to or more involved in U.S. politics?
I've definitely spent most of my free time when I was a kid sitting in my bedroom on my computer reading about politics and watching, YouTube videos, reading books. I mean, I remember I remember at 12 sitting in my mom's Pilates class in France, while she was doing Pilates, reading David Marinus's biography of Bill Clinton, which was about this thick. But, I remember I've always, since I was like 12, being obsessed with politics. My dad worked in the Reagan administration. I remember spending time on my own as a kid, digging through boxes we had in our attic or a cellar and like old boxes with like dust on them of my dad's old like White House stationery and like Jelly Bellies he had from the White House when Reagan was president from like they were 30 years old.
I remember seeing that in
Yeah, and they
Mexico.
had like the presidential seal on them,
Yeah.
so his signature. It was pretty cool. But in terms of online, I mean, I remember I would just read Politico a lot and Drudge Report, CNN. I mean, I the same stuff I do now and I would go on YouTube and watch like all the debates, presidential debates over and over again. I mean, I think I memorized the pretty much every word of like the 2004 first debate in 2004 between Bush and Kerry. I actually recorded on videotape and would sit at like breakfast or dinner and watch like so I remember like every the way they shook hands and everything. Like every all that I just soaked it all in.
Yeah.
But to your question, I remember at like 12 when John Kerry was running against George W. Bush, being part of an online group called Kids for Kerry. And there were like it was like a chat room and like message board, like the threads and everything. And, even back then I was engaged and talking to other people. And I mean, I think I started doing YouTube videos. Actually, they're gone now because I think I deleted them at some point, which I kind of wish I hadn't. But
Yeah, that would have been cool to see.
I was doing YouTube videos at like 15 years old and posting about my opinion on different political issues. So my interest in like being engaged politically online has been there for quite a while.
Yeah. Eric Yogi Bear says, as a child, did you know your mom was a big deal?
You know, when we were looking through these questions and I read that question, I spent some time thinking about it because the honest answer is like somewhere in between
Yeah.
because I don't remember thinking like, "Ooh, she's a big celebrity," or anything like that. Like, in fact, one of the blessings of living in France was even though some people, I mean, people knew who she was, but, it wasn't like she was like, there were no paparazzi. It's not like she was like a Michael Jackson or something where there's constant like media attention.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the blessings of my life is that I got a little bit of the benefit or the privilege of being in a family of people who have some privilege and some, a lot of privilege, a lot of success and all that. And I've definitely been the beneficiary of that. But I also haven't had to deal with the scrutiny that a lot of people like Madonna's kids or Michael Jackson's kids, I got kind of a lot of the benefits of it, but without a lot of the
Negative.
negatives. And so I remember like as a kid, my mom and I we'd go to McDonald's. She probably will hate me for saying this, but we go to like the McDonald's parking lot and eat like in France and eat like burgers together. And she's probably gonna get really pissed. I'm telling this story, but like, she'd be no makeup, wearing like sweatpants and a t-shirt. And we just go grab McDonald's or go through the car wash. And that's where I got my addiction to Haribo from. We eat Haribo in the car together.
Yeah.
And but so in other words, like,
That's probably the appeal of moving over there.
yeah,
It's just to be a little bit more normal.
yeah. I mean, I remember like, it's funny actually. I remember in hindsight, like my mom would come to like PTA meetings sometimes, where the parents come and the teacher, if they go like talk to all the teachers. And in hindsight, I was like, I don't remember people talking about it, like her being a celebrity or whatever. But in hindsight, I'm like, actually, I think I asked one of my friends from school, like, did people talk about it? Because at the time, I maybe just wasn't aware or wasn't thinking about that. And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, of course they did. But it just wasn't something that I ever really thought about. I do remember like when I'd go on tour with her, and that's why life was so weird. Like I'd spent most of my life in like an country, a small school in like the middle of the French countryside, basically. And then we'd like fly to LA and I'd be on the tour bus, which by the way, was one of the best memories of my life, being on the tour bus with the Go-Go's or like with my mom flying to New York.
Was your dad there?
Not for that tour,
Okay.
but yeah, he'd be there a lot. And we would, I mean, I was so lucky. I mean, I got to go all over the world to Africa, to Asia, to Europe, to the one place I haven't been yet, which my mom says she's going to take me to next year is Australia,
Mm.
which hopefully we're going to go together. But,
I've never been. So
so in other words, I was aware of the fact that there was an interest in her as a musician and I thought that was really cool. But I never really thought about it in the context of like being a celebrity or anything. I will say I'm really happy that in the last few years she's gotten to witness this sort of full circle moment because a lot of people don't. A lot of musicians, especially rock musicians, die young or
yeah.
they and the fact that she's now witnessed like people really appreciating her work, whether through Coachella or through the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or through the documentary on Showtime, which the Go-Go's documentary, which is epic, which
Or recent shows that
yeah.
with the music. Wasn't there a big one?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, like Black Mirror, in fact, that really changed a lot, everything because before Black Mirror is a big show on Netflix and they used Heaven as a Place on Earth in one of the episodes. And without that, I mean, I think a lot of this still would have happened, but that really changed things because I remember overnight, literally, like people saying to me, like, have you seen Black Mirror? I'm like, what's Black Mirror? And my mom had no idea. She didn't know when they used it in the episode. But all of a sudden, like, the song blew up again and it had like I think it literally has like 800 million streams now, almost a billion streams on Spotify. And she gets insane Spotify numbers. I've had 21-year-olds come up to me in the last 10 years. That was the thing is before in the 90s and the 2000s, like especially living in France, it wasn't like she had this huge amount of like public, public interest in terms of like people wanting to get into her private life or whatever. But about 10 years ago, like I remember I had 22-year-olds coming up to me at like the Abbey or something and going like, your mom is Belinda Carlisle? Like, I love Circle in the Sand and Mad About You and all that. I'm like, how do you people even know what these songs are?
Yeah.
So I would say the last few years, I think her public persona has become a lot more visible, I guess is the right way of putting it. And I'm happy about that because she deserves it.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that people finally appreciate. I wrote an article about this. It's on my Substack, but very rare that somebody not only, the lightning strikes once for someone as a lead singer of a big band, but then for it to strike twice and for her to become arguably even more successful globally as a solo artist is a pretty amazing achievement.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of her. I'm proud of you, Mom,
Should be.
if you're watching this, which I know you are.
Let's see. House of Wax CJ, what's your coming out story? Did your mom and father approve, or did it take some adjustment?
There's a lot of great videos on YouTube. I'll keep this short because I want to. Yeah, I tend to talk a lot, but there's a lot of great videos also on YouTube about interviews that my mom and I did together talking about it. And in fact, there's a great video. It's the only interview my dad's ever done, or at least on camera, of my dad and my mom and I. He agreed to do it for PFLAG, which is a gay, and parents, friends, and families and gays
Yeah.
organization. The only time he agreed to
Is that the one in
do.
Palm Springs?
We did a thing. My mom and I did a thing in Bakersfield.
Oh, that's what it was.
But then this was just for the PFLAG national organization.
Okay.
But we did a video, the three of us, talking about the whole experience, which you guys, if you're interested, can watch. If it's the only time my dad ever has done an interview, which really meant a lot to me because he wanted to support the cause. But considering it was 20 years ago this year that, which is unbelievable that I came out 20 years this October, they were great. I think, I'm an only child. So I think, it was a bit of a shock, which in hindsight, we laugh about it because there are a lot of signs that you would think they would have picked up on, but at the time they were pretty shocked. But I think, all things considered, they were very supportive. And I think it just took a little time for both of them to they made it clear that they loved me. They supported me, and that I'm lucky that I never really worried about being thrown out of the house or anything, which a lot of young LGBTQ plus kids have to deal with. So I was very lucky in that respect. My mom and dad always made it clear that they loved me unconditionally. Having said that, I think there was an adjustment period. But in terms of just like they said, we love you, but this is something we need to process. Especially my dad. It took him a little time, and he talks about that in the interview we did together. But now, they couldn't be more fantastic on every level. And Army has spent a lot of time with them, and they love him. Well, I think you love them.
I love them. Yeah.
I'll let you
I
speak
love
for
them.
yourself.
I know they've been really great.
Yeah.
And they've been great hosts too in Mexico City. And yeah, it's I can't wait for more adventures with them. They're coming in
A few days.
Yeah, a few
Sure.
days. So they'll be back.
So going to the Elton John Oscar party.
And every time they come to town, it's sorry to interrupt. It's just we have a blast. They're really cool people.
Yeah, they love him, and they've been they're the best parents I could ever ask for, and not just on this, but and then they also encourage me with this podcast, with my writing, and so they're as my dad would say, they're amazeballs.
Yeah.
That's one of his random favorite expressions. But anyway,
It was a deep voice that threw them off when you came out. They couldn't tell.
I thought maybe they'd know, but they didn't know. At least as far as at the time, they said they were genuinely shocked, which I was. But in hindsight, there's lots of. You guys should also go and watch. There's a great interview my mom did with Joan Rivers on YouTube where she talks about. Joan asks her about me and says, "Oh, you have a gay son?" And my mom goes through all this telltale signs, like the fact that I was like when I was 8 years old, I Love Lucy, and like like Andrew Lloyd Webber, Phantom of the Opera, like all these things. My mom's like, "Yeah, I probably should have picked up on that a while ago." But anyway, no.
All right. Kyle H. Martin, your commitment to giving voice for others has been longstanding. Nothing about what you've done and do present itself, wait, present itself as self-serving.
Self-serving.
What exactly drives your activism? Where is it rooted from?
Well, thank you, by the way. It's very sweet. I think what it was, I'd say, in a nutshell, from a young age, I had an interest in politics, and when I came out, it became like a personal thing. It wasn't just about, ambition or wanting to like be, a big politician. It was politics actually has a personal, really deeply personal stake in terms of my rights and my, not just my rights, but the rights of my entire, community. So in that sense, I think it became very personal for me. And then also, just being in my community here in LA, West Hollywood, again, I ran for office twice. I care about the community on a very deep level. I see what's happening around me and I want to, do what I can to try to make the community better. And as a country too, obviously and I also think part of why I love podcasting and writing is because yes, even I'm not like a Joe Rogan in terms of my reach as of yet. Hopefully, all of you can change that. Although I'm very grateful to all of you for those of you who've watched so far, of course. But I think what's so exciting about writing and podcasting and is you feel like even on a small level that you're making an impact on the world around you.
Yeah.
And that's such a like the fact that on a daily basis or weekly basis with a podcast, I know that by putting that out there, I'm part of something bigger than myself. Like I know that sounds kind of cliche, like, oh, we're part of bigger, but I really feel it. It's sort of it almost gives me a purpose in life, a sense of purpose that I'm even on a small level, I'm making an impact and changing, the world or the community in a way that's that I believe is right. And that's why, I have a lot of flaws, but if there's one thing that I've always been really lucky to have, it's a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And so for me, I wake up every morning and I have a very clear, passionate, sense of of what I'm meant to do and a drive to a passion to do something, that's important or that's making a positive impact. All right.
Sorry about
Let's
that.
let's bring this home, as they say. All right. Okay.
All right. So Alan P. Michael says, "Where did you meet your lovely boyfriend?" And you look like the perfect couple.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I mean, I'll let you talk. I've been talking a lot, so I'll let you if you want to talk for a second.
Yeah, I feel like this one we have contradicting the ways we remember the story. But for me, I remember being at a party. Now it's 16 plus years ago.
2010.
And I was in the pool, and all of a sudden, I could hear a rumbling of people saying, "Oh, you know who's coming over? It's James Duke Mason is coming over." And I remember thinking, "Who's James Duke Mason?"
This was probably a week, by the way, or so, a couple weeks into
Yeah,
me being in LA. So I made my presence known
yeah.
very
E-
quickly. I made a splash.
even before he got there, there was this air of noise,
Anticipation.
anticipation about James. And so it was fun because I'm like, wow, this person, people are talking about him. Who is he? And when he gets there, he did leave a lasting impression. Duke was someone that wasn't like everyone else. He spoke different. He was into politics. He was new to California, similar to me. I was like pretty new around that time too. And so we didn't really connect too much at the party. We spoke a little bit, but I remember him leaving an impression on me and a feeling actually that it's kind of hard to describe, but almost like there's potential of something there, and what that something was, I didn't know at the time. but yeah, it was a really nice time. How do you remember it?
Well, I remember meeting you around the same time. I just remember one of our one of my really good friends at the time, who I met soon after I arrived in LA, was a guy named Ryan Jones, who I met him at Tiger Heat, which many of you may remember was a big club night in LA back then, gay club night on Thursday nights. But anyway, long story, you can tell, let's go on and on. By the way, those of you, I should just say this, but those of you who, there are a bunch of other questions we got, which we really wanted to get to, but we could go, I could go on for 4 hours, you can tell. But so thank you for submitting them. In any case, so I remember meeting you. I was with Ryan, and he was dating a friend of ours named Jason Ponte. And I remember walking, I think it was upstairs. It was like an upper level into Jason's apartment. And I think you guys were playing video games. I remember seeing you. I remember the moment first saw you.
Oh my gosh.
And I think so, or on the floor maybe, playing like Nintendo or something. But and then over the years, we would run into each other in different places, and we tried going on dates a few times. And I think but neither of us, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think either of us could ever articulate why. But it was like we found each other appealing, but something just didn't click. And it wasn't that things were bad. It was just like we would go on a date and then we wouldn't see each other again for like
Yeah,
2 or 3 years.
yeah.
And
It wasn't the right moment, I don't
yeah, I
think.
think in the end, it was because we last February 2025, we ran into each other on Valentine's Day at
The gym bar.
a gym bar in West Hollywood, and we reconnected and we went on a date. And then we actually made it official at Coachella, which is very cinematic. Last April, so we're coming up on a year. But yeah, I think we both had a sense that, like, even back 5, 6, 10, 15 years ago,
There was something
I
there.
think we knew that the story wasn't finished. But I think it was the universe saying, or God, or saying, this isn't the right moment yet, but stay in touch,
Yeah.
which we did. So
And it's been an adventure.
yeah.
It's been a year.
It has. It's been quite a year. It feels like it's been 50 years, but yeah, Army's an amazing person, and I always tell people, I think, along with my parents, that he's probably the best person I've ever met.
Yeah.
Like decent, kind, like decent, kind, honorable, dignified. All the great. A lot of grace, a lot of good qualities. So
Really sweet. I try my hardest. There was one question that came in a bunch.
this is going to be our final question. Unfortunately, I wish I could answer more, but I think we're going to try to keep this under an hour. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So Martin Memerd, Kate Park, and Kevin Burke, they want to know, have you considered running for office again?
Well, by the way, thank you, Kate. Too. I want to just give a shout out to Kate because Kate's she actually was a friend who also worked on or helped support one of my campaigns for city council. I love you, Kate. The truth is, I mean, I think the answer is yes. I'm pretty sure it's yes. I just don't know when or what office. I ran twice for city council in West Hollywood in 2015 and 2019. I did pretty well the second time. Unfortunately, I came up short, but I was 26. I would have been, I think, by like 20 years, the youngest member of the city council. So considering I was 26 and, I think I came in, I think, fifth out of 11 candidates and the top 3 won. So, I was proud of of my campaign, and I've stayed involved. I worked for Rick Caruso when he ran for mayor of LA, and I still consider him a very good friend. I am supporting Matt Mahan, who's running for governor of California right now, and I'm also supporting Brian Goldsmith, who's running for state senate here in District 24. And I'm supporting them. There's also a chance, I might get involved officially in some way in their campaigns or in Matt's campaign. I'm hoping to get more involved. But so for now, I'm focusing on the podcast. I'm focusing on the writing, on, supporting Matt, and Matt's an incredible candidate. For those of you who live in California, you should look him up.
Yeah, yeah.
I met him recently, and I really believe in him. And I'm going to focus for this year, I think, on doing everything I can to support him. In the future, who knows? I think I'm a little undecided because not undecided on whether to run for office again, but more on whether I want to focus on, you know, state or national politics. I was a page in Congress when I was 14 or 16. So, who knows? Maybe I'd love to go back to Washington one day in some capacity. I remember as a page being like, I want to be in Congress one day. So, I could see, obviously that's not an easy thing to achieve, but I could see that one day down the line. Also West Hollywood, I love this city, and I feel very deeply invested in the community. And, To be honest, running for office is not that much fun. There are elements of it that I love. I love the politicking, but then there's a lot of especially I think people think small town politics is compared to national politics is kind of nice but small town politics can be pretty brutal. And there's a lot about running for office on a local level that's really tough. And so as much as I love the city and I'm very concerned about some of the direction that, certain areas that we're going in some ways, I also I'm figuring out the best way that I can serve. That might mean running for office again locally, but right now I'm focused on serving in other ways. So, but yeah, politics is definitely, I would say, as we said, sound very pretentious, but it's, as we used to say in France, ma raison d'être, my way for my reason for being. So I would say down the line for sure, that's something that I'm looking at.
Beautiful.
So thank you all. I'm so grateful for all the questions. Again, I'm sorry we couldn't finish, or there were at least 3 or 4 more that I really wanted to answer, but unfortunately we couldn't get to it. But I'm so grateful to all of you for the support. Thank you, Army.
Thank you for having me.
For being our host today. And I hope you all will join us next week and for all of our future episodes. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. Again, email me at questions@dukesdownload.com if you have any questions. We have some really cool, exciting guests coming up, including 1 or 2 that I'm really excited about we're working on right now. So keep supporting, keep coming, keep the faith, keep fighting, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, both locally and around the country, that we need to be active and invested in. So thank you all for being a part of it. Thank you for joining me today on Duke's Download. This podcast is part of Pride House Media, hosted by me, Duke Mason, and produced and edited by Josh Rosenzweig. Original music composed by Nell Balaban. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And while you're there, leave us a rating and review. It really helps others to discover the show. I'd love to stay connected with you, so join the conversation by following me at James Duke Mason on Instagram and X, or by emailing me at questions@dukesdownload.com.